But I would propose a couple of legislative solutions that I think may be helpful. And the first would be follow the money. If we have a better understanding of the phenomenon by being able to track donations to U.S. organizations when they come from foreign entities or foreign registered agents, it would make life a lot easier. So what if we had foreign donations reported to an appropriate federal agency, let's say the IRS, because they already retain nonprofit information? Then this data could be publicly hosted and searchable by recipient, country of donor, name of donor, amount of donation, etc., in the same way that the FARA database is currently accessible for registered foreign agents. Second suggestion I would make is truth in advertising. So when our citizens engage in running for public office or they seek to influence key legislation, they have to announce the financial sponsor of their activities. So too should foreign governments or registered foreign agents that engage in public relations or advertising or marketing campaigns. There should be little language at the bottom of the program saying, this ad funded by Saudi Arabia. Then at least the public knows what they're looking at. A third suggestion I would make would be stop the revolving door, slow the revolving door. The Saudis count on this revolving door between the administration and State Department officials and the lucrative private sector and the lobbying positions and the think tanks. If you extended the cooling off period for government officials from, say, 1 year to 4 years or more, it would increase the amount of time before an official could see any kind of payoff from a choice business opportunity dangled before them by the Saudis. And legislation of that nature has previously been proposed by Representative Frank Wolf and Representative Mike Rogers, so I think it's very doable. Now, all of these suggestions that I made would fall under the rubric of what would be called in information warfare counter-deception operations. None of them prevent the influence operation from taking place, but they do work to undermine the operation by exposing policymakers and the general public to the existence of the activity. And that minimizes the impact and it allows the public and the policymaker to make up their own mind. So that's what I have for you, and I appreciate everyone coming and hearing us speak today.
Kyle, that was really excellent. Extremely valuable information there. I just want to close up by saying a few words about what's been going on our educational system here in the United States, from Harvard Yard down to the ordinary kindergarten classroom. I just want to begin by quoting a former KGB agent, Uri Bezmenov, who said, "In reality, the main emphasis of the KGB is not in the area of intelligence at all. According to my opinion and the opinion of many defectors of my caliber, only about 15% of time, money, and manpower is spent on espionage. The other 85% is a slow process which we call either ideological subversion or active measures, in the language of the KGB, or psychological warfare. It's a great brainwashing process. The result, you can see, most of the people educated in the 60s, dropouts or half-baked intellectuals, are now occupying the positions of power in the government. Civil service, mass media, educational systems, you're stuck with them. You can't get rid of them. You're stuck with them to see and react to certain stimuli in a certain pattern. You cannot change their mind even if you expose them to the authentic, true information. Even if you prove to them that white is white and black is black, you still cannot change the basic perception of the logic of their behavior. In other words, for these people, the process of demoralization is complete and irreversible. To get rid in a society of these people, you need another 15 or 20 years to educate a new generation of patriotically minded individuals and common sense people who will be acting in favor and in the interests of the United States society. These words that were spoken by this former KGB agent on YouTube on October 28th of 2008 are actually much more germane when looking into the Saudi and the Islamist penetration into the American culture and to the American intellectual establishment. And while the Soviets operated covertly, the Saudis operate in the open, utilizing our laws and our money to do it, and their money to do it. In fact, the amount of money that the Soviets had spent to spread communism around the globe pales in comparison to the exorbitant amount that the Saudis have spent exporting Wahhabism, which has been estimated, according to Lawrence Wright of the Looming Tower, to be at least $75 billion since 1979. I just want to skip, in the interest of time, to how this infiltration is done. And many of you have heard me talk in the past of Title VI of the Higher Education Act, which was first established as the National Defense Education Act in 1958. This is an act that was established during the height of the Cold War because people here in Washington realized that American students were woefully ill-equipped to fight the Soviets in terms of matters of education and knowledge of cultures and language. And so they set aside a certain sum of money to go to our universities, to various campuses, to have regional studies industries, regional studies programs, such as Middle Eastern studies programs, then Soviet studies programs, African studies programs, etc. Unfortunately, in 1974, Edward Said, that professor of English and comparative literature, the lay professor, wrote a book called Orientalism, which revolutionized the field, especially of Middle Eastern studies. And anybody who was not a native of the land, an Arab, was looked upon as being an Orientalist or being an outsider. And his credentials for looking and analyzing that region of the world were held in dispute. Unfortunately, the Middle Eastern Studies programs, which were originally intended to raise a generation of students which would act in the national security and defense of this country, were then revolutionized, so much so that the Middle Eastern Studies Association has a magazine, and there are applications for the magazine for various positions, but they will not allow anybody to advertise for positions within the American government. So the whole original legislative intent of Title VI of the Higher Education Act has been turned on its head. You're much more likely to have graduates of these Title VI studies programs who look at America as exporting colonialism than you would be to find people that want to serve the national security interests of this country. What is extraordinarily pernicious, and I'm just going to make a very, very long talk that I had extremely short, is that in order for these universities to get American taxpayers' dollars from the government for their Title VI studies programs, they have to do outreach programs to teachers of kindergarten through 12th grade. And so they are instilling the same sort of hatred against the United States and against Israel to these American public school teachers from grade K through 12. Sorry. Anyway, this is all written about in our book about Saudi Arabia and the export of global terrorism, America and the West's fatal embrace. We're right now seeing the fruition of decades and decades of very, very masterful planning by the part of the Saudis, because people have graduated from these universities with tremendously biased ideas, and right now they are assuming positions of power in our government. So it might take a generation to reverse this. I have to say, a few years ago, I was able to get some very, very nuanced and subtle changes in the law about Title VI of the Higher Education Act, so that universities, when applying for the grants, have got to write how many of their graduates have gone on to serve in the national defense of this country. But we still have, among other things, and they have to show more balance in the curriculums so that if you're teaching Rashad Khalidi and Edward Said, you also have to teach maybe Bernard Lewis, or at least put it on the curriculum, but who knows how they teach it, or they probably just critique it. But we still have a very, very long way to go. Anyway, I know it's been a very, very long afternoon, and I thank all of you so much for coming and for all of your attention and your patience being here today. Thank you so much.